uninvited.
Yes. Well, thank you everyone for coming here. We're moving on, as Greg said, from Round Goby. Now we'll talk about northern Snakehead. And this is primarily going to be focused on the Delaware River Basin here in New York. I just want to start by acknowledging my co-authors, Ashley Morris, she's the Region 3 AIS coordinator, and Ryan Coulter, the Fisheries lead in Region 3. So northern snakehead, or China argus, are native to Asia. They've been introduced to several locations within the United States. Unknown sources, but likely through either aquarium releases, cultural or sport fish releases. And it's important to note they've been shown to successfully reproduce in the introduced systems. They are so this here, their life history, their sexual maturity tends to be within their native range at about 2 years, or within that approximately 12 inches, 304 millimeters. And they're a highly fecund fish with up to 115,000 eggs per year, and they can spawn up to 5 times. And interestingly, they do show parental care where both the male and the female will guard the fry ball. And they've been shown to live for about 8 years in the wild. The growth curve there on the right is from the Potomac River, which is one of the earlier sites in the United States where round goby were introduced. And their population and growth have been shown. And essentially, they're growing at similar rates to what were shown within the native range. And actually a little bit faster. And by year 1, we've kind of approached that 200 or 300 millimeter size for sexual maturity. They prefer fresh water, however, are tolerant to brackish water. Salinity ranges up to 18 ppt. They again prefer stagnant shallow water with muddy substrates and lots of aquatic vegetation. In Potomac, they've been shown to utilize different habitats within the winter seasons. They'll move into deeper water and can survive below ice cover. While in the growing season, they're found in the margins in that shallow vegetated areas. And in terms of an invasion front and then moving to new locations naturally, they've been shown to disperse after high water events and can move greater than 18 kilometers in a dispersal event. So an individual fish can move reasonably far. Their diets as fry include zooplankton and smaller insect and crustaceans, and then they shift to fish at both the juvenile and adult stages. An adult fish can eat other fish up to a third of its length, and they can grow to be roughly 1 meter in size. And the photo there is of an adult snakehead. Within the United States, there you can see their range on the right. They've been introduced in separate introductions into some southern states like Arkansas, Georgia, Tennessee, and then in the northern locations, Maryland and Virginia, their populations have grown and they're spreading both through the Susquehanna River. There's a canal that connects the Delaware River with the Potomac system and the Chesapeake Bay, and also separate introduction into Philadelphia in the wetlands outside of, within Philadelphia in the late 2000s. In New York and New York drainages, they're found again in the Chesapeake system, so within the lower Susquehanna River, moving up into Pennsylvania, and currently in the Harrisburg area of Pennsylvania, so still fairly far down, relative to New York, but there are many barriers between that location and New York, some dams. But anglers in that region have been shown to move these fish above those dams. The Delaware River, which we'll focus on here, And then also there's population within Queens and the New York City ponds. And that's been there since 2005 and is monitored by our Region 2 fisheries. So again, this is kind of the distribution in New York in a little bit more detail. I just mentioned the population within Queens in 2005, and so that's in Flushing Meadows in the bottom right on that map. In 2008, a second population was found in Bridgebury Lake, which is in Orange County, and it's within the Hudson River watershed. The DEC undertook a eradication effort at that time in 2008 and 2009 and successfully eradicated northern snakehead from that system over a 2-year period. Sampling, both physical sampling and eDNA sampling in the years since 2009 in that watershed have all been negative, so we're confident that snakehead were eradicated from that system at that time. The Delaware Basin, we first had reports in New York in 2019 on the Delaware River main stem, which was a credible report. I'll go into more details there. And then that was followed by reports in the Bashakill WMA, which is a wetland complex, the largest wetland complex in New York, in southeastern New York, that we'll talk about here. And then we've had a few unconfirmed reports in both the Oswego River and the Hudson River through time, and we'll talk about them, but there have been no other sightings or reports of them in those systems since. So when we had this first report in the Hudson River in 2019, we put together a sampling effort that involved DEC, Regional Fisheries staff, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the bureau I work with, which is Invasive Species and Ecosystem Health, and we used both electrofishing and environmental DNA. And this was our first effort to really pull a team together to sample for this fish species as a rapid response. So that effort included multiple electrofishing surveys, both day and night, and also, so it also included U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service equipment as well as DEC equipment. And then we also performed some environmental DNA sampling at that time. So in the Hudson River, again, that was negative, but it was a good exercise in bringing together all these partners to work on this issue at that time. And the photos there just kind of show the sampling sites, some of the sampling efforts and places we were working. And like I said, there have been no reports in the Hudson in the time period since 2019. Similarly, in the Hudson River watershed, we had a credible report from Rockland Lake, which is a state park. It was likely a common carp. It was a video that shows, but we put a similar effort together for environmental DNA sampling. And again, those were all positive. There was some inhibition that was shown, but we've had no other reports since then at this lake. And again, it was another effort that we worked with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and state parks and regional DEC to kind of just get out there and do some sampling and see. So no snakehead here as well. In 2020, we had our first detection in the main stem of the Delaware River by it's actually a guide who caught a snakehead with a photo. We were certain it was a northern snakehead. It was removed from the system. But Region 4 DEC and went out there. We did some electrofishing and eDNA surveying at the same time, simultaneous essentially efforts. So we were in separate boats, so not contaminated gear or anything. Through electrofishing on that day, we did catch a northern snakehead at the same location with the tandem environmental DNA sampling. When we got those results back, they were positive as well. So that kind of helped build confidence in that as a tool for sampling with northern snakehead. And so we had the positive electrofishing and eDNA at the same site, and all of our other sites were negative both for using both techniques. And you can see some of the photos on the right there. The bottom, that's our sampling team with the snakehead in hand. So then in 2021, this is the Bashakill WMA. As I mentioned, it's the largest wetland complex in southeastern New York. It's, we had an angler caught fish with a photo again, and Region 3 Fisheries put together a sampling team, and we went out there multiple electrofishing trips, both day and night again. No snakehead were caught using electrofishing, but at the same time we had the paired environmental DNA sampling, and we worked with our partners at U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to look at the site and really decide how we wanted to sample at the site. And what we decided was to really sample at a pretty high frequency. So we sampled every 500 meters down this system, and you can see all the points there on the map. And we were really surprised when our results came back with positives all throughout the system. Every one of those green or yellow dots with numbers on them were positive detections for northern snakehead in the system. So again, we'd only had one angler caught fish, but yet our eDNA was showing habitat use throughout the whole system. So we continued doing some sampling there. So Region 3 Fisheries went out the following year and did a fish survey. And these are all the species of fish that were documented within the system. So these are the species that could potentially be impacted by northern snakehead as a population develops and grows. And there are probably some others that were not captured as well. And it is important to note that this site, the Bashakill WMA, is also one of the, well, it's the only site in New York with iron-colored shiner, which are a state-threatened species and have been extirpated from other regions of New York. So in 2022, knowing what we knew about this distribution of northern snakehead in the Bashakill, we looked into the watershed, and we found, learning more about it, we found that there's a hydrologic connection between the Delaware River and the Hudson River watershed through this Delaware and Hudson Canal, which runs parallel and is intertwined with the Bashakill, or the Bashakill, which is the tributary that feeds the Bashakill WMA. And so in 2022, we again sampled at that same frequency, 500 meter sampling, and that's what's shown on that map there, from within the Hudson watershed on the top right, all the way down to the WMA, at that 500 meter frequency. So that's along the canal, in the Bashakill, and some other wetlands in that area. And again, we had positive results for environmental DNA within the WMA, and so that's what's shown in the southern part there, the bottom left of the map. And all of those yellowish triangles are negative results. So at this point, we haven't seen any upstream movement of northern snakehead towards the Hudson River watershed. So that was in the spring of 22. In the fall of 22, we did find some positive findings again in the within the WMA, just in the northern reaches. So this is further upstream than we had seen previously. This is all still within the Delaware watershed. And so moving into 2023 and 2024, that 500 meter sampling is really quite strenuous within that stream. It's an unmaintained stream, so it's a haul to get a boat through and collect all those samples. So we worked with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to develop a new sampling scheme, which is what's shown here. And we've been sampling at these sites now since 2023, and we've been sampling at a sampling frequency of every 4 to 6 weeks. And it's a day trip to get out there, collect all the samples, and send them off. And again, we've seen positives within the northern end of the WMA. In 2023, we had a few weak positives in some other locations, and then in 2024, we had no positive detections at all within the D&H canal. So we know that they're in the WMA, and that there's at least the potential for them to move upstream towards the Hudson River watershed. And here's a few more maps kind of showing these sites with positive and negative detections. All right, so as far as reproduction is concerned, in 2022, Region 3 Fisheries got a tip from an angler about a fry ball, and they went out there, and sure enough, they were able to net over 2,000 young of year, and those were all within that 31 to 65 millimeters. So there were still young fish living in those fry balls. In 2023, no reports or finds of any snakehead within the system, but we still had the positive EV&A hit, so we know they were still there. And then in 2024, so this past summer, where the Region 3 Fisheries again were able to net 217 young of year within those, within a fry ball. However, those fish were bigger in that 60 to 80 millimeter range. Within the Potomac, it's been found that those fish, those fry balls will begin to break up 75 to 100 millimeters. So it could be that, as the fry ball grows, individuals break off. It could be that they're consumed by the predators in that time. But so we know they're still out there and still reproducing. Also in 2022, in a fall electrofishing survey, a 174 millimeter young deer was captured. So that's definitely post fry ball breaking up, but still young within that year. You can see the photo of Garrett there with that fish. So this is just a summary of all the fish that have been captured within the Delaware and the Bashakill in the time period. In the Bashakill in 2022 and 2024, I think 7 adult snakehead have been captured, kind of ranging in size from like 492 to 689 millimeters. While in the Delaware, fish have been captured in 3 years, and kind of following within that same size class. Within the Delaware, we get data from both New York State DC, but also our partners at the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Position. Also, we're doing similar sampling on the Pennsylvania side. So with all that in mind and our concern with the northern snakehead making its way into the Hudson River watershed, we've been concerned with with the potential dispersal upstream through that D&H canal. So we've worked to install a temporary barrier. You can see our first attempt there, which was installed in September of 2022. In the following year, in November of 2023, we had a contractor installed barrier, which was an improvement. It's a little bit higher out of the water, it's more robust. Logs and stuff are not going to move it, and debris, so it's a maintenance issue that we have to go out there and clean it from time to time, but it's unlikely to move. But you can still see the original installation allowed for a kind of flooding around one side. So in 2024, Region 3 operations improved it further by building essentially a wall along the side of it and a dam. So any high water events are not going to flood around this. And you can see just a few different photos of what the improved barrier looks like. So that's the current state right now. We continue to pursue and think about what a permanent barrier or potential hydrologic separation between the two watersheds, or returning the two watersheds into two fully separated systems would look like. We've had meetings and talked about this kind of early stages. We've performed hydrologic studies and have looked into design and permitting issues that would be involved with taking a step like that. This canal is historical, but it's not used for navigation in any real way. There is this towpath along the side that people recreate on. In addition to that, this year I'll just run through this. We did some additional EDMA surveys within the upper Delaware River, and you can see we mapped, we looked at different wetland types as our survey sites. We did detect northern snakehead on both the east branch and the west branch of the northern snakehead, and that's what's shown in those yellow sites. The triangles show both angler and professional captures. So, we have found northern snakehead again within the main stem, and then also within the east and the west branches. Additionally to this, we have a student from ESF as a poster who should come talk to me about. It's about food web analysis using stable isotopes and looking at gut content. So we're all the way at the end of the aisle there, so come find us for more information on that. We continue to have fact sheets available for regions or anyone who's interested in that kind of education or outreach materials. And again, northern snakehead continued to threaten New York, either through movement up the Susquehanna into New York, or this potential movement into the Hudson River through both from the Delaware and the D&H Canal, but also through the Raritan River and potential New York, New Jersey bite or flooding events like that could potentially be. So future plans, continue monitoring, surveying, looking at some genetic connectivity with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and then also periodically repeating this food web study to look at those long-term impacts of this introduced invasive species. So with that, I believe I'm out of time, so thank you.